this session, we will explore what it takes to build the digital financial infrastructure for Japan. With Japan trying to be a financial innovation hub of Asia, it will take strong collaborations between the public and private sector to make this a success. And here to moderate between both sides is Mr. Pieter Franken, Director of ASEAN Financial Innovation Network. Now, Pieter is a Fintech pioneer and a deep tech innovator with many industry firsts. His career spans 30 years in financial services, specializing in management, fintech, innovation, and large-scale digital transformation. He has held C-level and executive positions with industry leaders such as Citigroup, Shinsei Bank, A+, Monex Securities, and Monex Group. Pieter is an advisory member of the Monetary Authority of Singapore's International Technology Advisory Panel and an advisor and founding member of the ASEAN Innovation Network known as APIX, a non-profit company founded by MAS, IFC, World Bank, and the ASEAN Banking Association to accelerate digital transformation across Asia and other developing regions to foster financial inclusion and bridge the gap between fintech and financial institutions. I will leave Pieter to introduce the members of his panel. Pieter, over to you.
Konnichiwa, live from Tokyo, Japan. My name is Pieter Franken. Welcome to our session. As the third largest economy in the world, all eyes are on Japan and its renewed aspirations to become Asia's financial hub. Japan's digital journey will play a key role in the future of its finance infrastructure. The digital ambitions of Prime Minister Suga, the impact of COVID on digital priorities, going cashless, central bank digital currencies, crypto exchanges, the fintech ecosystem, cultivating local and global talent, neobanks, open banking, regional and global competition and regulatory innovation. Join us today from Tokyo Live to learn the views of three celebrated thought leaders covering the entrepreneurial, regulatory, and economical views on going digital in Japan. First of all, to my left, I would like to introduce Mr. Matsuo Motonobu. He has been the Secretary General of Securities and Exchange Surveillance Commission since 2020. He started his career in 1987 with the Ministry of Finance, Japan. In 1994, he became the Deputy Personal Secretary to the Prime Minister, followed by a wide range of key positions, such as Director for Foreign Exchange Market Division, International Bureau, Director of Planning Division, Planning and Coordination Bureau at the Japan FSA, and Vice Commissioner for Evidence-Based Policymaker. Would introduce Oki Matsumoto to the left. And Oki Matsumoto started his career at Salomon Brothers and joined Goldman Sachs in 1990, where he became general partner in 1994. He founded Monex in 1999, jointly capitalized with Sony. Monex Group is now a major online financial institution that operates retail online brokerages in Japan, US, China, including Hong Kong, and Australia. It also has a large crypto asset business through CoinCheck, which was acquired in 2018. In January 2020, it established Japan Catalyst, an investment advisory firm. Currently, Oki serves as director of MasterCard and the vice chair of Human Rights Watch. And finally, I would like to introduce Jesper Koll. Jesper has been researching and investing in Japan since becoming a resident in 1985. He was the chief economist and head of research at Merrill Lynch Japan and JP Morgan Japan. He has been serving on several Japanese government and private corporate advisory councils, including Tokyo Governor Yoriku Koike's council to revitalize the Tokyo Financial Center. My name is Pieter Franken. Very briefly, a little bit about myself. I've been living in Japan for 30 years, and I've been a pioneer in the fintech and financial space, specifically in technology and operations. I worked for Citibank, I worked for Shinsei Bank here, and I worked for Monex Group. More recently, I've been an advisor to the Monetary Authority of Singapore in Singapore, and I've been a participant and founding member of the APIX platform, an exchange that has been set up in Singapore to encourage the collaboration between fintechs and banks across Asia to foster financial inclusion. So let's focus on Japan today. Let's try to stay away as much as we can. We will touch a little bit of COVID, but let's really focus on the future of digital finance in Japan. And I would like to start with the first question. I would like to start with the two Matsuo-san, and then we'll go around. Of course, the world has heard quite a bit now about the new Prime Minister Suga's aspirations in terms of going digital. And what I really would like to learn from you all is, what are your expectations from this digital drive? And do you see that the impact, and how do you see that impact the digital financial services in Japan? Matsuo-san.
Okay, so the idea is basically the balance between the COVID infection and the maintaining the economy. And the best way is going digital. And for Japan, the going digital is good for COVID, not only COVID-19, but it's going to solve the aging society problem, which is you can work from the rural area. And our expectation is it's not only in the financial area, it's like medical, education, government procedures, everything. And the key point is my number card. So it's going to be a very important basic for the digitalization and the digital agency as well. So it's going to have a huge impact, not only for the financial area, but for Japanese society.
Okay. Thank you, Matsuo-san. Okay, your views.
Well, I'd like to hope that the Suga-san's, the revolution would be good. But I have to say that it seems to me that he is really focusing on improving the efficiency of governmental administrative services, not the overall kind of digitalization of the financial industries and all other industries, more focusing on the governmental administrative services. So it has to come fast, and of course, it will lead into the other innovations. But I expect that for the first 1 year, it will be really focusing on those administrative issues.
Thank you, Jesper.
I mean, I think it's a phenomenal way to inject energy, into the administrative state. And I think we can all agree that governments around the world, whether it's the United States, even Singapore, and certainly Japan, governments have become ossified. The institutional practices, the institutional procedures have been around for the last, 70 years, and things need to change. And that's where DX, right, which is not deluxe, but it means, digital transformation, is obviously a big catalyst for change to inject energy. And it's very interesting because, like, for example, and no names here, in the United States, you've had a president who wants to drain the swamp, who's almost sabotaging the government. Here in Japan, they take a constructive approach. They're actually injecting competition, because if the digital agency is digital, does that mean that the Ministry of Finance is analog? So competition, the juices are flowing, and as a result of that, I think the government actually sets the agenda that large corporations, whether it's Mitsubishi Bank, whether it is Hitachi, inevitably will have to follow.
So Jesper, thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about COVID. COVID has been touching everybody in the world. It has been an equal challenge, so to speak, for each society. I think Japan has always its unique way to deal with things. We were wearing our masks before there was COVID, but if we one of the things that did COVID expose in Japan was the relatively, as you were saying, relatively antiquated infrastructure of the ministries, cities, etc. We saw the fax machines, we saw the chops, the hankos, we saw the passbooks at the banks, and at the banks people were lining up because they couldn't do it online or whatever. But if we look at COVID and we're seeing kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, do you think that the COVID will kind of be an accelerator for digital financial innovation in Japan, or are there other factors that will play a more important role? And your first one.
Obviously, COVID situation is kind of, how do you say, unlocking some stupid, old-fashioned ways of Japan being operating. So in the hospital, in the banks, and the governmental offices, and many places, and also even in the regular offices, people now use remote working and all kinds of digital methodologies. That is good. That is good. So this is very good. But as regard, if we see the innovation beyond that, it's not just coming from the COVID. So we have to have some sort of a designing and some a plan to create innovation after that. Otherwise, so the COVID is just a kind of one kind of how do you say, one kikkake in Japanese?
Catalyst.
Catalyst. But catalyst doesn't change everything. We need to have the foregoing plans after this.
Jesper, your views on COVID?
I mean, Japan does crisis really well. Whether it is, there's lots of them. You've got, unfortunately, you've got, lots of earthquakes. You've got tsunami. You've got these big, big rainfalls. And whenever there's a big one, actually Japan comes out stronger. And it's not a big revolutionary change, but some of the things that were deemed to be impossible, all of a sudden, because of the crisis, become possible. And let's just be specific. We can talk about the digitalization, which we will later on in the panel, but as anybody of you guys who's been doing business with Japan, what's your biggest problem? Your biggest problem is the speed of decision-making in your Japanese partners or in the Japanese businesses that you want to get into. And there is a chance, right, that with telework now being there, with the digitalization accelerating here in Japan, that actually the decision-making process and the speed of decision-making, that is actually going to start to change, so that you guys from out in the rest of the world can actually do more profitable and faster business here in Japan.
Thank you. And Matsuo-san, your angle on that?
I kind of agree with Oki-san. So this is a good occasion to go digital, definitely. And it's very important. This is not just handling the COVID-19. It's very important that you have to go digital or go ESG, whatever, and you have to think about the future of the post-corona and the aging society. So, and by doing that, you can solve the Japanese the basic problems as well. So you have to think about it very carefully.
Thank you, Matsuo-san. I would like to go to the next point. London and Singapore, have been touted as the kind of the centers for fintech. Over the past years, we have seen the emergence of Japanese fintechs with success stories such as Money Forward, Payday, or LifeNet. So how do you see the fintech ecosystem in Japan? What are kind of the challenges? What are the opportunities we should be looking out for? Is, for example, open banking something that is going to be a game changer? And I would like to start with Jesper, your views on the fintech ecosystem here. What is?
Look, first of all, I think that the opportunity is absolutely enormous. And just do never, ever forget that Japan is the world's largest creditor country, right? And then in addition, you now have a transformation, of assets, because of the aging society. Over the next 10 years, you've got the equivalent of around $5 trillion, right, that will change hands just because of the way the demographics here unfolds. And the younger generation, right, looking for better ways to manage their assets, right, not wanting necessarily, the expensive advisor from some of the established institutions, but taking their wealth management into their own hands, that creates a huge opportunity here.
Thank you, Jesper. Matsuo-san, and maybe you could also share a little bit about open banking and initiatives that are happening to stimulate fintech in Japan.
Actually, I'm kind of involved in like fintech stuff for last 5 years or something, and among that 5 years, almost every legislation was aiming to like introducing like fintech stuff or like technical stuff. And the open API is very important in the sense that it's going to open of the banks to collaborate with fintech or technology is important. And the other area is maybe the key, next key might be like my number card, which is a like huge infrastructure for the like everything data, including data, whatever. And the other thing is like last year's legislation, we introduced the brokerage for banks and security firms and the insurance company at the same time, which is very suitable for application stuff. So, and so we have to keep on these challenges a lot, and eventually the mind of the banks or insurance companies, whatever, is going to change, and so we have to keep trying every year.
Thank you, Matsuo-san. Okay, on this topic as well, maybe you can expand also a little bit about the investment climate into startups, etc., in Japan, as you're very much close to that.
Well, Matsuo-san is my like close to 40 years dear friend. so I've been seeing that he's been kind of promoting fintech, but I'm not satisfied. And when you look at the fintech companies in Japan, they are more like just like applications, on the banks, for example. In the UK, for example, or other part of the world, the fintech open banking is really playing a very important role in the entire kind of bank ecosystem. So it's not the application on the bank; it's just a part of banking, services. So open banking is really, how do you say, letting some part of the banks to fintech. So that kind of thing is not being happened in Japan. So I really would like to see in Japan the regulators to somehow deregulate, to give up some of the banking, the capabilities to outside, calling open banking.
I think it was very valid points. I just wanted to make a side remark. Singapore just launched last week their own open banking initiative, and each Singaporean can now very easily opt in through their national ID, opt in and opt in every bank, and then all of it will be on your screen within seconds. And I just wanted to see if, Jesper, you wanted to add on something to that.
No, and this is, Oke and I are in full agreement here. Great progress, obviously, but you need to sprint a little faster, right? But the real issue is, a lot of the fintech applications here basically are cost savings mechanisms that cut out the middle office or the back office of a given silo of a given financial institution. Open architecture, right, doesn't come natural to Japanese to begin with, right? There is no such thing as a general democratization of finance here, where typically what happens is if there's a new technology, Toyota, for example, if the car manufacturer has a new technology to manufacture something, you find that of that productivity increase, half, goes into profits and the other half goes into lower prices, right? And you find that, for example, the general cost of financial services for the customer, for the people of Japan, actually has not really come down very much, right? And so there's, from that perspective, a long and big opportunity here for the democratization of finance with the fintech revolution actually, and as you know, it's a bad word in Japanese, right? Disruptive, to disrupt a little something. It's a bad word in Japanese because everything needs to be harmonious, but to find this hybrid way, I think that's where the opportunity set actually lies.
Jesper, thank you so much. And I think that, maybe we need the Japanese way is we need kind of a harmonious disruption. Is maybe and now we're kind of zooming and honing in on the regulators here. I would like to say something positive for a change. And I think it is really tough to be a regulator, specifically in Japan, as there is so much. It's the third largest, it's the third largest market in the world, and there's a lot of things that are happening. But as the first in the world, the Japan regulators took the bold move 3 years ago to regulate crypto trading. And Japan now boasts the largest crypto trading community with millions of traders and investors. We also have heard of Japan's ambitions around launching a central bank digital currency, and many other countries and European community have done that as well. But just a question, if we talk about this harmonious disruption, what drove this bold move, and what is the next in Japan cryptocurrency land? Can we expect a central bank digital currency anytime soon?
Okay.
Matsuo-san.
So for the crypto stuff, Japan is, as you said, the first country to have regulation on the crypto currency. And at that time, there was a G7 agreement that the cryptocurrency has to be regulated in terms of KY, whatever. And at that time, we are the first maybe the first country to introduce this scheme, so that the trading can be, in a way, regulated and in a way safe way for the investors. And I guess I'm not so sure, but we are one of the fastest country to introduce STO regulations as well. And now we are in the position that we have kind of experience in the crypto area. So in the G7 or G20 dialogue, maybe our experience is one of the most important ones to have consensus, whatever. And the other challenge is to have initiative in the future blockchain ecosystem, which is regulators and the engineers kind of stuff. And for the CBDC, it has to be precise. So the CBDC's proof of concept is three phases. And one is a concept verification phase 1, which is build a system, experimental environment, and verify the basic functions. It's going to start early in 2021. And the proof of concept phase 2 is add peripheral functions of CBDC to the experimental environment constructed in phase 1 and verify its feasibility. And the pilot experiment is a third phase, which is private business and consumers participate in the field if it is determined that it is necessary after proof of concept. So these are the CBDC's plan.
Matsuo-san, thank you very much. I think it sounds very exciting that we're going to, see in Japan that innovation happen fairly early. Oki, I think you know a few things about crypto trading and trading, having CoinCheck as part of the Monex group, and and as I think as the regulators allowed Japan to start playing with it, I think doing is more important than talking. So what are your views on crypto today, and where do you see this go in terms of your business?
I think regulations or regulators are in a very subtle area. Matsuo-san and many of my classmates went to the government, and they went to government either to regulate something or to grow the industry or grow the country. Okay, it's all coming to regulators' arm. But and the law does many things. Sometimes it regulates something, but sometimes it creates a kind of safe harbor or kind of infrastructure to grow the business. What happened was that the crypto thing, back in 3 years ago, the FSA created a law to regulate the cryptocurrency trading, but it happened to be read as to grow that business as well. So we got very excited, right? So I think that this kind of, it's not, regulation is not just a regulate thing, but also to create a framework to grow industry. So that kind of point of view is very important. And I really hope that going forward, Japanese government would appreciate this thing more than before. As regard to CBDC, my understanding is that there are lots of, not only in Japan, but also many nations, there's lots of arguments about the CBDC. between central banks and politicians mainly. But this time in Japan, the politicians, thought that the CBDC is very important measure in the national security, economical national security point of view. Okay, so that created some sort of inertia or momentum to, make this happen. So this is coming from something different, not from the financial kind of purpose. It's coming from national security purpose. But at the end of the day, if it becomes CBDC become available, it's great for industries. So I'm hoping and believing that the CBDC Japan will be realized, and that will be actually huge game changer for Japan, I think.
Okay, thank you, Jesper.
Look, I mean, just very quickly. I mean, it's a question of who sets the standard, right? And there is. It's an open secret that the ones opposed to the CBDC were the Americans, right? Because they said, "Oh, let the private sector do it. Let Libra sort of take over." And the Japanese actually in the G7 and G20 were very clear. It's like, look, we got to be very careful here because we're going to have a coordinated effort to actually set an Asian standard, because the People's Republic of China, thank God, is very competitive in this area, is raising the bar literally every day. And if the West, as it were, including Japan, do not catch up, right, we're going to have a very, very imbalanced situation. So I think it actually shows, that the Japanese regulator is forward thinking. Yes, very important, 2-3 years ago, nobody would have talked in Japan about national security. And yes, it is an issue. And it is an issue with cryptocurrency there. But the good news is that Japan is actually the coordinator and producer behind the scene, getting the Americans on board to actually have something that is globally competitive.
Jesper, thank you for that. And the commercially adept Americans have renamed Libra to a new name. So I guess the innovation
What's called now the Trump? Oh, sorry. Sorry. I guess he lost the election.
No, I mean that we're now entering the next decade in the US. So let's move to the next question. We talked about central bank currencies, and that brings us to the next topic around digital payments in Japan. And digital payments in Japan are all the rage. I can talk out of experience here. If you go to a convenience store here, you're greeted by a panel next to the cashier, which has a lot of icons on it. And each of them is one of the competing payment systems that you can use. Now, this is leading to a little bit of confusion and a little bit of adaptation problem. I think even in Japan today with COVID happening, we're only maybe at 50% cashless, while other areas in Asia like Korea, the penetration, or China, is almost like 100%. So we're not really seeing the major breakthrough yet in going cashless in Japan. And I think Japan still loves its passbooks and its cash. So what do we need to do to have Japan go cashless? And I would like to ask Oki to take the lead on that question.
It's easy, CBDC. There are so, as you said, there are so many services. If you ride on the taxi, there are like 50 icons, right? Yeah. And then it's too much. Yep. And the merchants can't, all merchants cannot prepare those 50 services. So they say, okay, I can do that, but I can take cash. And we say, okay, I can't have all those 50 services, but I have cash and I can use cash anywhere. So cash prevails, okay? Once CBDC is introduced, the great interoperability, and then we don't need any other stuff, just use CBDC. And as regard to technology, by the way, you said China is way up. Well, I have to say, but if you look at that EU1, we can relatively easily mimic or create a similar thing using a Suica technology very quickly, and then a very Suica technology is just is great. Yep. So we can create a very good digital CBDC thing quickly in Japan. So we should do the CBDC, and then cashless economy will come quickly.
So just can Japan catch up with China?
No. But I mean, look. I mean, Japan has a wonderful problem, right? Which is that everything's working. right? I mean, it's not as though there is a problem. I mean, if you're in the People's Republic of China, if you're in Myanmar and you're starting from scratch, of course you're going to have the latest technology, right? So Japan is working very well, in my opinion, right? It's actually working very, very well from this position of actually everything is working, right? But we're still going to be in the top global 3 in terms of being a technological contender. And it's very interesting when you look at Japanese tech companies, right? In terms of providing the sensors, providing, some of the analog technology that is still required, right? To provide the backbone for the digital economy. I mean, I'm sorry. It's the Japanese, right, together with the South Koreans that ultimately completely dominate that space. And in fact, it's my own country, Germany, that has huge problems because, they're still doing smoke signals, right?
Jesper, thank you for that, and we're not going to solve that problem today. And so
the German one.
The German one. And I fully agree with you. I've been living in Japan for many, many years, and it is a fantastic country with fantastic infrastructure and logistics that are, I would say, second to none. And I think Japan is, okay, was saying, I think Japan can really leapfrog out of that position, and if there's leadership around, and I feel a strong sense that we have that leadership sitting in this room, so we can do that. I would like to go to next topic, and I've been traveling a lot over the last 2 years in Asia as part of the APIX project, and I've been meeting a lot of regulators, and I've met a lot of bank CEOs and small banks and fintech leaders, etc. And one of the big topics that everybody is talking about, and also in the Singapore Fintech Festival on Friday, it's the day for talent. And talent for going digital is a huge issue. I mean, we can't churn out enough people that have the digital mindset as fast as we would like to do. And so in Japan, I think there is a similar challenge in Japan to how do we skill up the younger generations to go digital? How do we become masters in AI, blockchain, or big data, API platforms, or just digital mindset? It's not all about technology. It's also about thinking differently about how e-commerce is done, how the country is put together. So I would like to start with Jesper on this question as to what are the hurdles to grow the local talent pool, and do you see a key role for global talent, maybe like ourselves, or to come here to build their future here in Japan?
Look, I mean, this is an endless discussion because I mean, the young generation, is always one step behind in the eyes of the older generation, right? But how do you foster that spirit there? I mean, at the end of the day, for Japan to attract the A team, the real, the best graduates from the best universities, in technology, in engineering, right? At the end of the day, it's going to be the corporations in Japan, the large corporations in Japan that have to change. And let me give you a very quick example. I had a couple of years ago, a Japanese friend of mine, his son was graduating from MIT as an engineer. And, he asked me for advice, and he got a job offer from a German company, an American company, and a Japanese company, right? And so, as I said, well, look, Hiroshi, if you go, to the American company, if you're good and lucky, in 10 years, you can be the CEO. If you join the German company, if you're good and lucky, in 10 years, you can be in charge of a region in the world. But if you join the Japanese company, in 10 years, what's it going to be? Line manager, kacho, so the career path for the A team at the end of the day, needs to improve in the large corporations. The the startup community is obviously a different path, right? But it's the large companies, it's Toshiba, it's Hitachi, it's Fujitsu. These guys need to change.
Jesper, thank you, Matsuo-san. If you think about talent and from the FSA viewpoint, it's a big, challenge to get the whole financial industry ready for going digital. Yeah. What are some of the initiatives that?
Yeah, so this is a very tough question. Tough question means how to solve this is very tough. But so we have to do everything. And the one important thing is the same topic is the big company, big financial institution has to have a very interesting and challenging project so that the talented people want to join. So I mean, basically speaking, the big financial institutions' decision-making process is sometimes very criticized to be very slow. But so but they, I got the impression that they are more and more like technically focused, and the CEOs are starting to think that the technology matters a lot. So in this case, the CEO is going to take the initiative, and they're going to bring some adequate amount of money, a bunch of money to the project, so, and they don't this money is so the people suitable person is in full charge of this project, and that's this kind of thing is gonna this culture is gonna for my impression a bit little by little growing. So you need to have a very good project in the big financial institutions.
Matsuo, thank you very much. It kind of remembers me when I came to Japan 30 years ago. It was the 5th generation computing project that attracted me as a young student to come to Japan. And I fully agree with you that this type of making these bold statements, etc., are big, stimulators for the generations to go and do something. Okay, I would like to ask you about talent as well. And I know you also have been mentoring and stimulating young entrepreneurs in Japan. And maybe you can share a little bit your views of how you see the talent crunch in Japan.
Well, talent pool in Japan is actually very good. Okay, you don't have to worry too much about if we have a talent in Japan. The young guys, they're good. The problem is this seniority system, as Jesper said. I think seniority system in Japan is the biggest diversity issue. It's not gender, it's not race, it's a seniority system. That is really, drawing down the value of the Japanese kind of output. And when we look at the seniority system, the strongest seniority system actually exists in, in here, bureaucrats. Okay, so that is actually kind of supporting the seniority system in the large corporations, because the large corporations do need to communicate with the, bureaucracy. Okay, so we should start from cracking down the seniority system in the central, government. That would be the good way to go.
That's a clear cue. I'm going to go to the last closing question, and I hope.
Okay, but that's actually very interesting, because it's actually the current Prime Minister Suga who started to crack down on the seniority system in the bureaucracy. I think now, for the first time in the history of Japan, in the senior bureaucracies, there is 53 people who are, in charge of people who are, who are older. Than they are, right? So there's been some movement, some change, right? That is actually starting.
And that's very encouraging. I would like to go to the last topic for today. And yesterday, on the same Singapore Fintech Festival, Japan track, we heard from the Minister of Finance Nakanishi. He talked about the aspirations of Japan to become a financial hub. And this is not a new discussion. I think Jesper and all of us, we have heard about this before. But I think this time, there is a renewed energy I'm sensing. Of course, there's a lot of been discussion around tax. And yesterday, I think we heard about some of the other initiatives that are being taken around that. But I would ask each of you individually, what do you think is really going to be the key digital catalyst to make Japan a financial hub? Or is it, after all about the tax rates? And I would like to start with you, Matsuo-san.
Okay. Tax is very important, of course, but the using English for the entry or supervision or inspection, that is another thing we decided to challenge, and of course the regulation as well. And so the simple regulation for the new entrant, and these are the tackling already.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Income tax.
Income tax. And I think there is already some measures have been announced. Do you think that will be enough for people to come, or is it a good start?
Well, there are lots of political issues there.
Yes.
But we have to start And so that it's a good start.
And just for our audience, the Japanese government has announced that companies are able to deduct income for their staff of their income,
that doesn't really work well. The best thing is to put the cap for the income tax on the individuals.
Okay.
That will bring the super caliber talent from outside into Japan.
Okay, and so that was my question. Actually, that clarifies your standpoint on that. And Jesper, as being
look, I mean, working in finance, I mean, obviously, yes, of course, I cannot be not in favor of lower taxes, right? But leaving that issue aside, the single biggest obstacle, is access to assets. In the sense of that, for you and I to set up, an asset management boutique, right? The most important metrics is assets under management, right? And unless there is a true incubator program where the Japanese public pension scheme or the Tokyo metropolitan government or the Japanese postal system, right, where they give me some anchor assets to get off the ground, right? If that doesn't happen, I think people will always go to Singapore, for example. And, Singapore, makes it very clear. If I go to Singapore and I do the right thing, I will get the stamp of approval by getting investments from GIC, Temasek, or MAS. And that gives me a halo that allows me to attract assets. So that's the key issue in the financial services industry.
Jesper, thank you for that. I think we have reached the closure of our session, and I would like to summarize, one keyword maybe that came out of this is harmonized disruption, the Japanese way. We talked about the amazing infrastructure. We talked about some of the challenges, but I felt that among all of ourselves, there is a sense that Japan is going to become a key player in the digital financial space, not only just the financial space, of course. And I think that gives us a nice lead out for all our global audience here live from Tokyo to say, the moment COVID is over, of course, go to Singapore, but I think there is now enough reasons to come here. And one of the other things that was mentioned recently is that the cost of living in Japan has always been seen as very high, but in today's statistics, it actually rates behind Hong Kong and Singapore. So I'm talking to CEOs, I'm talking to business leaders as well. Something you may want to go and check out after this session. And with this, I would like to thank Matsuo-san, Oki Matsumoto, and Jesper Koll for being with us here today. And have a nice day and see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Pieter, and thanks very much for the rest of this panel for bringing us a really well-balanced discussion on how regulators and the private sector can work together in order to lay a strong digital financial infrastructure for Japan.